if we have any sense. The water from hold it out faithfully. Back, if we can, something of ourselves. Some beauty, some grace, some gift. Give back in gratitude. Something like what is poured into our shells for those who abide with us. Each morning we hold out the chalice of our
As is our practice, Barbara will place a stone in our common bowl for each of the joys and sorrows that we share this morning. I want to ask her to place a stone in there now for all of the folks in our congregation who are traveling this weekend. I know there's lots of us missing here, and they're out in the mountains enjoying the beautiful weather and traveling to meet family, and our ministers in Columbia visiting in the congregation there. So safe journeys for all of these. Maya Wetzler Israel is in a state of war with Hamas. Oh, okay, terrorist. Please place this down. Benedetta places stone. Reverend Holly and Melissa for their loving help during my last migraine attack on Friday. This is in gratitude. Mike Heffernan has a joy. The Phillies 3, the Braves 0. 1 down and 2 to go. Yeah. Yeah. Chin Fu, good morning. There you. Beautiful fall, a walk in the forest, and fresh air. These are things to be grateful for. And I'd like to ask you to place a stone for me. My apologies this morning, folks. I have a bad toothache, so things are kind of rattled, and I apologize for that. If you'd place that stone for me. Thank you, ma'am. In the sharing of these joys and concerns, we bring them together as a community of people who love one another, who support one another, who care for one another during the highest moments in our lives and sometimes the lowest moments in our lives. In this, we know that we are not apart, but we are together. Amen. Now, if you will join me in singing the children to their classes. If you will join me now in a spirit of quiet reflection as Corey plays some beautiful music for us. Several weeks ago, Kathy Crane shared this poem from Marge Piercy. It is a particular favorite of mine as well, and if you will bear with me, I'd like to repeat it. The people I love best jump into work head first. without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives in that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the field to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in and the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well, has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek aphoras for wine or oil, hopi vases that hold corn are put into museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, a person for work that is real. As Karen mentioned, the theme for this month is heritage. And I had originally planned on talking about Unitarian Universalist women and the heritage that they bring to us from their service to ours. But when I started writing for this service today, my focus turned into this community. I began looking at all of the ways that the members of this fellowship, I forgot to get that. I'm going to make it through today. I started looking at what had been done to build this community of people that we enjoy as friends, as partners in the work that we do. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. Right here, I got it. Thank you. I went back, there's a notebook in the library that I think, Elizabeth, you told me about, that has part of the history of this fellowship written in it. It's the orders of service from previous ceremonies, and pages after pages after pages of the minutes of this congregation. It is a rich history. I don't want to talk about the minutiae of what we have done. I don't want to talk about the committee meetings. I don't want to talk about the bills that were paid or the mortgages paid off. I want to talk about the people. That's my focus for today. The people that are this congregation. Not the bricks and mortar of the buildings, but the people who bound those bricks and mortar together, who built these buildings and created these classrooms, and who created the place that is the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. The first Unitarian Universalist here in the Clemson area came from, I think most of them were faculty members, if that's not correct, here at Clemson University. Some lived over in Greenville, some lived here in Clemson. And there was a small group that began meeting in each other's homes. Their focus was primarily humanist. They would come together for great discussions about the important things and what it means to be human and what it means to live a more stronger and a more contributive presence into the world. Their numbers began to grow, and they grew up to a mighty number of 10. And at the time, there was a movement in this country to foster new Unitarian Universalist fellowships around the country. And so they applied and were accepted to be a fellowship. And they continued to meet in each other's homes. Now, most of these folks were young people. They began to have their families, and as they continued to meet, one of the things that I noticed in one of the notes was some of the families were a little bit frustrated with having to get a babysitter every time they wanted to come together. So they made the decision to go to the YMCA to begin having their meetings, and there was an adjacent room where they were able to have the children have their RE classes. And they met there for several years until they outgrew that space, and they began to have discussions about building or going to a new place. They had meetings about it. They talked about it, as Unitarian Universalists are wont to do. We want to deliberate on our next moves. This congregation was looking at other places to meet, but was not able to find any, so they made the decision to go way out into the country and buy a piece of land all the way out Pendleton Road. One of the things that was in one of the notes is that they liked about this property is it had a lot of trees on them. I don't know if it was to keep the neighbors out or if it was to keep the Unitarians in, but there was this sense of privacy in this space on this land that they purchased. And they built what is now known as our social hall. That was their sanctuary. It had the kitchen. It had a fellowship hall, which was the room that is now the large RE room there, and 2 small RE classes. And they had found their home. They had created a home for themselves. Well, as I mentioned, they were young people who were continuing to have families, and they went from being 41 members with 28 kids to having, and I forget the number, I neglected to write it down, but the word that was used in the minutes was exploded. The numbers of children in this congregation exploded, and so they needed to build a new RE space. Now, they had retired the budget, or retired the mortgage for the other buildings, so they needed to raise money for this new RE wing, and I was told that in one Sunday, what they called Super Sunday, they raised $10,000 in this small community. This community of people who were dedicated to continuing coming together as Unitarians. Now, they were still Unitarians at the moment, weren't they, Daryl? I mean, Dillman?
By 61, it changed to...
The 61, when the two organizations joined. But in 1980 was when they built the RE wing. I think that was correct. And then in 1994, they made the decision to build this sanctuary. And so what you have here are the various stages of their building process. All during those years, there were hundreds of pots of coffee made. Pages and pages of minutes taken. Dozens and dozens of stories told in those RE classrooms. There were potlucks. There were Christmas services held. There were Easter services held. This was a humanist congregation, but it was in the religious South. And so a lot of these folks that were coming in as members were part of that Southern community. And so religious services were held in a non-religious way. But they came together as community. They supported each other in community. And they worked together in this community. For the work of this congregation not only went on inside these buildings, these walls, but they went on outside in the community. Dillman's husband, Bob, had some comments to make when they were building the RE wing, or when they were dedicating the RE wing, that this building was not only a gift to this fellowship, it was a gift to the community. Because the Unitarians and Universalist has a presence here in this community. They had been a part of a lot in leadership roles and many of the good things that were happening in this community, particularly when it came to the education of young black kids who had not benefited from public education until that point in the 1960s, when they began to integrate the public schools in South Carolina. The Unitarians were very much in the forefront and in the leadership of a movement to create the Clemson Community Child Development Center, Clemson Child Development Center, which provided programs for young children who were preschool age to prepare them for entering into the public school system. That Clemson Child Development Center exists today. And a woman by the name of Bernice Holt was in the forefront of making that happen. Bernice was the first minister that this congregation, what is the word I'm looking for? Ordained.
She's not ordained, she became the lay minister.
Okay, but I thought she was ordained as a lay minister was the words that were given to me. I'm looking back on other people's notes, and I've had conversations with other people's, and so I'm sometimes use the words that other people's give me. So we were very involved in creating the Clemson Community Child Care Center. This congregation, over the years, has, as I mentioned earlier, retired many banknotes. We have raised money for buildings. We have raised money for community causes. We have raised money for our religious education programs. But more than that, we have given hours and hours and hours towards the work of this congregation, whether it be through worship, whether it be through religious education. But it is a volunteer organization that gives hours, that gives time, that gives minutes. And no matter whether you give a minute, an hour, or a day of your time, it is a gift to this congregation. It is a gift to this community. And it's a gift that we cherish. I am going to have to apologize to you. I can't go on. I can't do this. My apologies. I'm going to invite you to sing a hymn. We've got one in our hymnal that's you got to do when the Spirit says do, is the one that is the next one in the order of service. It's number 1024, I believe. Yes. Yeah, it's 1024. And I'm going to invite you to stand up and stand with me as we sing this song. This is about working. This is about work. You got to do it when your Spirit calls you to do it. You got to serve when your Spirit says serve. You got to dance when your Spirit says dance, and you got to sing when your Spirit says sing. So if you will help me, Corey? Oh.
Working with you.
Okay.
Do you know how many verses you have for the slides on this?
Actually, there's one slide that's got the whole song, and then it's just the second slide's got the different versions. So there's only 2 slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
that song another time.
Thank you for being here this morning. Go in peace, return in love.